The station's docking bay was a cathedral of polished stone and humming graph tech. Banners of alien empires draped from the vaulted ceiling like an endless parade of arrogance. Delegates stood in glittering uniforms, scales and silks, and plumes shimmering under the lights, each hoping their posture conveyed both civility and superiority. The scent of ozone from the shielding mixed with the perfumed oils of the Cerithian hosts. Peace, at least in appearance, hung in the air. Then the humans arrived, 30 minutes late. Their shuttle drifted in as casually as a bus pulling into a city station. When the ramp hissed open for generals strode down, their boots clicking sharp against the marble floor. They wore crisp dress uniforms, ribbons displayed without ostentation but unmistakable, the kind that whispered of wars won and blood spent. Their leader, General Marcus Hale, carried a steaming mug of coffee in his left hand. He smiled warmly, as if he had just walked into a backyard barbecue rather than the most delicate peace summit in centuries. "Hope we didn't keep you waiting," Hale said, his voice light, conversational. His southern drawl curled through the translation tech, like velvet across steel. He raised his mug. "Traffic, you know how it is." A ripple of murmurs cut through the assembly. The Threxian ministers, 4 eye stalks, quivered in disbelief. The Calathi chancellor whispered to her aide, mandibles clicking in disdain. To them, punctuality was sacred. A late arrival was either a calculated insult or proof of incompetence. But Hale's relaxed grin disarmed the sharpest interpretations. He extended his hand to the nearest alien delegate, a towering seraphi with translucent skin veined in gold. "Marcus Hale, pleasure to meet you. Love your, ceremonial armor. Shiny, but it catches the light something fierce." The seraphi blinked twice, uncertain whether this was praise or mockery. Hale's handshake lingered just long enough to establish dominance, but not so long as to draw accusation. He moved on smoothly, greeting each delegate with equal familiarity. Behind him, General Torres tugged a crumpled paper bag from his coat pocket and offered its contents to the nearest alien aide. "Donut? Brought extras." The aide recoiled as if Torres had extended a grenade. Hale chuckled and sipped his coffee. The hosts attempted to recover, guiding the procession into the great chamber. It was vast, domed, the walls painted with histories of wars long past, the air heavy with incense. A central table stretched the length of a starship corridor, gleaming under crystalline chandeliers. Delegates filed into their places with the stiff dignity of actors playing roles they did not entirely understand. The humans sat at one end, deliberately sprawling into their chairs as if they were at a poker game. Hale placed his mug squarely on the pristine surface, leaving a ring of condensation. His colleagues followed suit with notebooks, pens, and in one case, a deck of playing cards. The Calathi chancellor cleared her throat, a clicking rasp amplified by the acoustics. "Representatives of Earth, this gathering is a solemn attempt at reconciliation. Centuries of interstellar conflict demand civility. We expect honesty, humility, and respect." Hale nodded gravely, then smiled. "Of course. We're all about honesty and respect. Humility too, though my mama always said if you've got it, don't brag about it." He leaned back, chair creaking. "Now where do we begin? Reparations? Apologies? Recipes?" The translator stuttered on the last word, uncertain. Aliens shifted uncomfortably. The Threxian minister leaned forward, scales flashing iridescent blue. "Let us begin with acknowledgement. Humanity has been reckless, expansive, quick to violence. The Council requires assurance that such behavior will not continue." Hale swirled his coffee, the faint clink of ceramic against liquid oddly loud in the chamber. "Reckless, you say? Quick to violence." He tapped his chin thoughtfully. "Interesting perspective. Back home, we call that survival. Little thing about our species, we're quick learners. Fast adapters. Sometimes that means we fight first and figure out the details later." His smile remained, but the warmth drained subtly. "But don't mistake that for carelessness." The seraphi delegate exhaled in a hiss. "Fragile mammals, clinging to sentiment. Your people, your women and offspring, distract you from discipline. Empires are built by sacrifice, not sentimentality. For the first time, Hale's eyes hardened. The corner of his smile remained, but it no longer reached his gaze. He set down his mug with deliberate care. Fragile, he repeated softly. Sentiment. Huh. You know, where I'm from, we tell stories about bears. Big, shaggy animals look slow, love their cubs something fierce. Fragile little things, those cubs. But you harm them, and suddenly you meet the teeth. He leaned forward, voice dropping an octave. And believe me, nothing looks fragile when it's tearing you apart. The Seraphite recoiled slightly. The other delegates exchanged wary glances. For a heartbeat, the chamber fell silent except for the hum of the air recyclers. Then Hale chuckled, breaking the tension. He leaned back again, gesturing with his mug. But let's not get too dark. We're here to talk peace, right? Peace requires a little humor. Keeps us from getting ulcers. Torres fanned the playing cards across the table. Who's up for poker after? Best way to settle disputes. Low stakes, just for fun. Unless you want to raise the ante. The suggestion baffled the aliens. Some muttered that humans treated this sacred council like a tavern game. Others whispered that perhaps it was a strategy. This disarming levity. The first hours of talks unfolded with uneasy rhythm. Aliens presented accusations. Humans deflected with statistics delivered casually, almost carelessly, yet each chosen with precision. Hale would nod thoughtfully, then recount some episode from Earth's history with a smile that never faltered. Our world wars? Oh, messy business. Millions dead. Twice, in fact. Learned a lot. Efficiency, logistics, morale. We treat history like a classroom, though granted, our textbooks are written in blood. Some aliens scoffed. Others fidgeted, antennae twitching in unease. The numbers were grotesque, yet the humans described them like anecdotes from a family reunion. When pressed on their expansionist colonies, Hale smiled faintly. We're explorers. Always have been. Used to cross oceans in wooden boats smaller than this table. Sometimes we fought, sometimes we traded, sometimes we did both on the same day. Old habits die hard. The Galactic chancellor bristled. You make light of atrocities. Hale tilted his head. No, ma'am. We make lessons of them. Light just helps us carry the weight. The hours wore on. Incense thickened, tempers frayed. Yet the humans remained collected, unshaken. The humor never quite disappeared, but beneath it grew an undercurrent, like the vibration of a predator's growl, just beyond hearing. At one point, a young alien aide whispered too loudly. They act as if nothing matters. Hale turned his head slowly, locking eyes with the aide. His smile softened, almost kind. Everything matters, he said gently. Especially the things you think we'll overlook. The aide paled, retreating into silence. By evening, the session adjourned. Delegates filed out in stiff lines, muttering, antennae twitching, tails lashing. The humans lingered, rising slowly, stretching as though from a long dinner. Hale drained the last of his coffee and placed the empty mug back on the pristine table, leaving a faint ring. As they walked back through the vaulted halls, Torres nudged Hale. Think they bought the act? Hale's grin returned, sly and razor-sharp beneath the charm. They'll call it an act no matter what, but they're starting to wonder what's underneath. That's the point. The alien banners rustled in the recycled air, their golden threads shimmering with reflected light. Hale paused beneath one, gazing up at the embroidered scenes of conquest. His expression softened for a heartbeat, then hardened into something colder. Fragile, he murmured again. Then he laughed, loud enough for nearby aides to hear. Guess we'll see how fragile we really are. The words echoed through the chamber, leaving an unease that clung long after the humans departed. The council chamber felt colder the next morning, as if the station itself had absorbed the unease from the previous day and exhaled it back upon the delegates. The chandeliers still glittered, the incense still burned, the polished stone still shone, but beneath the surface there was a faint tremor, like the silence before storm. The alien delegations filed in with stiff precision. The Threxians came first, their scaled hides dulled overnight as if fatigue had leached their sheen. The Calathi followed, mandibles clattering in hushed conversation, each phrase bristling with disapproval. The Seraphi walked tall, luminous veins glowing faintly in defiance, yet their eyes betrayed restless flickers of doubt. The humans arrived last again. They strolled in like neighbors attending a block party, not conquerors or supplicants. General Hale carried another mug of coffee, the steam curling lazily upward. General Torres had swapped his deck of playing cards for a paperback novel, its pages bent and worn. General Rivera, youngest of the group, munched on a granola bar, as if she were at a staff meeting rather than a galaxy-defining summit. "Morning, folks," Hale said cheerfully as he slid into his chair. "Sleep well? These beds aren't half bad. Bit firm for my taste, but I've had worse. One time I had to bunk in a foxhole during a thunderstorm. Now that'll ruin your back." He took a sip of coffee and smiled warmly across the table. The Galactic Chancellor bristled. "General Hale, this assembly convenes under solemn purpose. Your tone is alive." Hale interrupted, eyes twinkling. "That's the idea. Peace talks should feel like, well, talks, not funerals." The Seraphi delegate tapped the table with a claw. "Your levity insults the dead. Billions have perished. You treat it as comedy." Hale's smile thinned just enough to show teeth. "Comedy is tragedy plus time. And maybe a little perspective." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Besides, where I'm from, humor keeps soldiers sane when the shells start falling. If we didn't laugh, we'd break. You'd be amazed how much blood a joke can hold back." The chamber rustled with discomfort. Some aliens muttered curses in their native tongues. Others stared, fascinated, as though studying a predator pacing in its cage. The Threxian minister slammed his scaled fist onto the table. "Do not lecture us about war, mammal. We have fought across 10 systems, conquered 20 moons, lost generations. You cannot fathom sacrifice." Hale took a slow sip of coffee, unblinking. 10 systems, 20 moons? Impressive. Back home, we fought over scraps of land no bigger than this station's atrium. And we killed millions doing it. Twice in a single century. Torres flipped a page in his novel. "Efficiency's the word. We don't do half measures." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the faint hiss of the air filters. The Galactic Chancellor's mandibles clicked in agitation. "You admit to barbarism, and yet you dare claim a seat among civilized powers." Rivera wiped crumbs from her uniform. "Civilized? Lady, we invented indoor plumbing, jazz, and space travel in the span of a couple centuries. Took us a bit longer to figure out peace. We're working on it." She smirked faintly. "But don't confuse kindness for weakness." It was a subtle shift, one moment banter, the next an edge sharp enough to cut glass. The aliens exchanged wary looks, sensing the current changing beneath the surface. Midway through the session, a datapad was slipped quietly to the Galactic Chancellor. She skimmed it, her mandibles tightening, then passed it to the Seraphi delegate. Soon the document made its way around the table, whispers hissing like venom. Finally, it reached Hale, who accepted it politely, setting down his coffee before scanning the text. The report was brief, clinical, an intercepted transmission, leaked through obscure channels. It confirmed what rumors had hinted at for months, that an alien coalition strike had deliberately targeted a convoy of human refugees fleeing the border worlds. Thousands had died. Women, children, families seeking nothing more than safety. The alien fleet had not stumbled upon them by accident. They had chosen the convoy as a warning. Hale read in silence. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His colleagues glanced at him, waiting. He set the pad down slowly, folding his hands together on the table. "Well," he said softly, "I appreciate the honesty." The Seraphi shifted uneasily. It was regrettable, but necessary. War demands harsh choices. Hale's smile returned, but it was brittle, sharp as glass. Regrettable. Necessary. He rolled the words on his tongue as if tasting poison. "Where I'm from, we've got another word for that. Murder." The Threxian minister snarled. "Collateral damage is the price of victory." Hale's voice did not rise, but the warmth was gone. "Funny thing. When it's your people, it's victory. When it's ours, it's collateral. Strange arithmetic. Torres closed his novel with a snap. Rivera's smirk vanished, her eyes narrowing to flinty focus. The air shifted. Hale leaned forward, elbows on the table, his tone deceptively gentle. Let me tell you something about humanity. We're sentimental. We write songs about home, poems about lovers. We keep pictures of our kids in our helmets. You call that weakness. But here's the truth. Hurt us, and we'll bleed. Hurt the people we love, and we'll never stop coming for you. We don't forgive that. Not ever. The words hung heavy in the chamber, carrying more weight than any shouted threat. A nervous alien aide whispered, "They sound unhinged." Rivera's lips curved in a small smile. "Nah, just motivated." The Seraphi delegate attempted to reassert control. "General Hale, you misunderstand. The council seeks reconciliation. Reparations may be considered, but you must accept that some losses are inevitable." Hale's eyes darkened, the friendly glint extinguished. He spoke with the calm of a man delivering a verdict. "Inevitable? Nothing's inevitable, except that we remember." The Galactic chancellor tapped her claws nervously. "You speak as if vengeance is your creed." Hale tilted his head. "Vengeance? No. Balance." The chamber seemed smaller, the walls pressing closer. Even the incense could not mask the scent of tension. Hours passed, but the rhythm of the talks was broken. The aliens bickered among themselves, some arguing that humans must be crushed before they grew dangerous, others warning that humanity was already more dangerous than they dared admit. Through it all, the humans remained patient. Torres doodled idly in the margins of his notebook. Rivera tapped her pen in steady rhythm. Hale listened, silent, every so often offering a comment so mild it sliced through the noise like a scalpel. "You're right, we are young, which makes us impatient. Impatience breeds creativity. You think we're fragile, but ask yourselves, why are you the ones nervous right now? You believe we'll forget. That's the funniest joke of all." By the time the day ended, the council chamber felt less like a hall of peace and more like a cage, the humans coiled and waiting. As the delegations filed out, Hale remained seated, finishing the last of his coffee. He looked toward the vaulted ceiling, the alien banners swaying gently in the air currents, and exhaled slowly. Torres leaned in. "They're cracking. You can see it." Rivera smirked again. "Yeah, and we haven't even shown them the teeth yet." Hale rose at last, straightening his uniform, his expression unreadable. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "they'll understand." At that same moment, far above the station, a ripple shimmered through the darkness of space. Cloak ships, human ships, vast and silent, slipped into orbit. Their weapons remained cold, their engines dim. But they were there, waiting, like wolves circling the campfire. Inside the chamber, the candles guttered, incense coils burning low. The echoes of Hale's words lingered in the air, unsettling as a whisper in the dark. "Where I'm from," his voice seemed to echo, "we don't forget." The third day dawned under a different light. The station's vast viewports revealed the stars beyond, steady and cold. But something in their stillness unsettled the gathered delegates. Rumors had spread overnight, fleets moving in the dark, strange signals on encrypted bands, whispers of shadows prowling just outside detection range. No one spoke openly of them, yet every alien who entered the chamber glanced upward, as though the void itself might lean close and listen. The humans came again, right on time this time, which made the delegates more nervous than their habitual tardiness. General Hale strode at the front, his expression pleasant, shoulders loose, the same steaming mug of coffee in hand. Torres followed with his battered novel, Rivera with her notebook and a new granola bar half-eaten, and behind them a few aides whose calm was so complete it seemed rehearsed. They looked, in every respect, like professionals at a casual conference, yet the unease they left in their wake was unmistakable. Hale greeted the chamber as if it were his living room. "Morning, everyone. Appreciate you making the effort. I know it's been tense, but tension means we're getting somewhere, doesn't it?" He settled into his chair, sipping the coffee, leaving another faint ring on the polished table. The seraphied delegate did not return his smile. "General Hale, we have confirmed activity on your military channels. Your fleets are maneuvering." Hale's brows lifted in mock surprise. "Our fleets move all the time. That's what fleets do. Be weather vanes otherwise, wouldn't they?" He leaned forward slightly, voice light, conversational. "You're not worried, are you?" The Galactic Chancellor's mandibles clattered furiously. "You bring warships to a peace conference." Hale shrugged. "Insurance policy. My mama always told me never go to a meeting without your lawyer, your gun, and your backup plan. I left the lawyer at home." Nervous laughter rippled among a few delegates, quickly stifled. Others hissed in outrage. The Threxian minister rose abruptly. "This proves it. They never sought peace. Humanity plots treachery." Hale's tone remained soft, his smile intact. "Now hold on. We came here in good faith. We sat, we listened, we drank your tea, we admired your banners. But you," he tapped the datapad still lying in the center of the table, the one that detailed the slaughter of human refugees. "You made choices you called necessary. And necessary has consequences." He let the silence stretch, heavy and suffocating. Even the hum of the air recyclers seemed to hesitate. Then Rivera spoke, her voice cool, edged with dry humor. "You ever hear of poker? Whole game's about bluffing, except when it's not." She popped the last bit of her granola bar into her mouth and smiled faintly as she chewed. The Seraph's veins pulsed brighter. "You threatened the entire council." "Threaten?" Hale tilted his head. "No, just reminding you of perspective. You've spent centuries squabbling, conquering moons, enslaving populations. We studied all that. Carefully, patiently. We're new here, so we did our homework." He leaned forward, his eyes sharp now, voice losing its warmth. "And history has this funny way of being a teacher. Ours taught us that every empire thinks it's invincible, right before it breaks." Torres chuckled, flipping a page in his novel. "Spoiler alert. The House never wins against us. Not for long." The chamber grew restless. Alien aides whispered furiously. Some delegates demanded immediate expulsion of the humans. Others argued that to anger them further would invite catastrophe. Fear, for the first time, outweighed arrogance. Hale reached into his coat and pulled out a small hollow emitter. With a tap, the chamber's air shimmered, and above the table appeared a three-dimensional projection of the void outside. Dozens of human ships materialized in precise formation, previously cloaked, now revealed in brutal clarity. Their lines were sleek, utilitarian, nothing ornamental. Every curve designed for efficiency of war. They circled the station like wolves around a campfire, their weapons dark but ready. Gasps rippled through the chamber. A Galactic aide collapsed, fainting. The seraphied delegate hissed in fury, but his luminous veins flickered erratically. The Threxian minister's scales dulled to a sickly gray. Hale folded his hands, calm as ever. "See, the thing about poker, sometimes it's not a bluff." The revelation shattered the illusion of control. Some delegates shouted for evacuation. Others fumbled with comms to their fleets, only to find their channels jammed. Panic clawed at the edges of the chamber, but the humans sat steady, unmoving. Rivera's voice cut through the chaos like a scalpel. "Settle down. We're not here to slaughter you. If we were, you'd already be dead. This is about understanding." "Understanding what?" the Galactic Chancellor demanded, mandibles trembling. Hale's smile returned, slow and thin. "That humanity isn't what you think we are. You see us as sentimental, distracted by love and memory. You think we're fragile because we bleed for our families. But that's the trick. It's exactly because we bleed that we endure. You mistake kindness for softness. That's fatal." The seraphied delegate sneered, though his voice trembled. "You cannot hope to fight all of us." Hale's eyes hardened, no humor left. "We don't hope. We plan." Torres snapped his novel shut. "And we plan better than anyone." The chamber fell into stunned silence. In that quiet, the subtle sound of boots echoed. Doors at the edges of the hall opened, and squads of human marines strode in. They moved with eerie calm, rifles slung low, visors down. They were not charging, not even aiming, just spreading, taking positions with the casual efficiency of people who already owned the ground. One Marine whistled softly, a tune unmistakable to any human ear. "Take me out to the ball game." The jaunty notes echoed strangely in the sacred hall, absurd and terrifying in equal measure. A Threxian aide shrieked, "They mock us." Rivera leaned back in her chair. Not mocking, relaxing. Ever seen soldiers before a fight? Music helps. The seraphied delegate slammed the table. "This is war." Hale finally stood. His chair scraped against the marble, echoing like a blade drawn from a sheath. He looked across the sea of alien faces, and when he spoke his voice carried the weight of every grave dug on human soil. "You killed our women, our children. You called it necessary. You thought we'd accept that, because you've mistaken us for something tame. But here's the lesson. Humanity doesn't forgive. Humanity doesn't forget. And humanity doesn't lose when the stakes are survival." His words cut deeper than any blade. The chamber was frozen, every delegate staring at the man who had begun as a smiling guest and now stood revealed as something far more dangerous. Rivera rose beside him, her voice a whisper sharp as glass. "You wanted to see us civilized. This is civilization. But civilization's just the thin paint over war." Torres chuckled, sliding his novel back into his coat. "And trust me, you don't want to see what's underneath when the paint peels." The Marines spread wider, their boots steady, their rifles still slung, but their presence undeniable. The air felt thick, electric. Every alien in the room realized at once that the humans had never come for negotiation. The council had been lured into a cage, and the predators had just bared their teeth. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the Galactic chancellor whispered, "You will destroy us all." Hale's gaze lingered on her, and for a fleeting second his expression softened, almost pitying. Then it hardened again, steel under velvet. "No, you'll destroy yourselves. We'll just hold up the mirror." The silence afterward was unbearable, like the stillness before an executioner's swing. Above the station, the human fleet drifted in silence, weapons armed but idle waiting. Inside, the council chamber had ceased to be a hall of peace and become an arena. Hale raised his mug one last time, now empty. He set it gently on the table, leaving a ring that gleamed under the lights. His voice was quiet, almost conversational, yet every ear caught it. "You killed our women," he said. "Now you'll meet the other side of humanity." The chamber seemed to darken at his words, the chandeliers flickering as though the station itself shuddered. Every alien heart clenched with the terrible realization that the smiles had been masks, the humor camouflage, the politeness a prelude. And beyond the walls, the wolves of Earth were waiting. The air inside the chamber had gone brittle, every breath sharp as glass. No one spoke for several heartbeats. The alien delegates shifted in their seats, their bodies betraying the instincts of prey trapped in the predator's gaze. The Marines stood quiet and still, rifles hanging low, helmets reflecting the pale glow of the chandeliers. Even their silence was a weapon, a reminder that nothing in the chamber belonged to the council anymore. General Hale let the silence stretch until it quivered with tension. He clasped his hands behind his back, his expression measured, almost kindly, but his eyes glinted like a drawn blade. "We asked for peace. We offered it in good faith. You called us fragile. You killed our families. And now here we are." He paused, letting his gaze sweep the table. "What lesson do you think comes next?" The seraphied delegate rose, veins glowing in a defiant flare. "You would not dare. To slaughter us here would unite every world against you." Torres chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "That's the funny part. You're already united against us. Didn't stop us from showing up, did it?" Rivera tapped her notebook with one finger, her smile small, humorless. "We don't need to conquer you. We just needed you here. All of you in one place. Call it efficiency." The realization rippled across the chamber, and panic broke its dam. The Galactic chancellor scrambled to her feet, mandibles clacking in alarm. The Threxian minister shouted into his comm, but static shrieked back, channels still jammed. Some tried to flee toward the doors, only to find Marines already stationed there, standing like statues, their visors reflecting nothing but fear back at them. Hale lifted a hand and the chamber quieted, not from obedience, but from dread. Sit. No one's leaving. Not yet. Slowly, reluctantly, they obeyed, like children forced back into their chairs. See, here's the truth. Hale began to pace, his voice even, almost conversational, like a teacher guiding a classroom. We don't start wars lightly. We know what they cost. We bury our dead with names carved in stone and songs sung for generations. But when you force our hand, we don't fight to balance the scales. We fight to end the fight. The Seraphi hissed. End it? You mean annihilation? Hale glanced at him, his smile faint. If that's what it takes. But think of it less as annihilation and more as pruning a tree. Get rid of the rot before it spreads. Rivera leaned forward, her voice smooth. You like to think humanity is unpredictable, chaotic. We're not. We're statistical, pattern-driven. Every empire we've studied, yours included, makes the same mistakes. You all believe fear keeps subjects in line. That power is taken by force. That people will obey if you punish them enough. It works until it doesn't. Until the people you break stop being afraid. And then they burn the whole house down. Torres added, tone dry. Guess which part we're best at. The delegates sat frozen, each word a nail hammering into the coffin of their illusion. A low tremor shook the chamber. The hollow projector still hung above the table, showing the human fleet outside. One by one, their weapons lit like stars waking in the void, bright lances of energy warming for discharge. The sight stole the breath from every alien throat. You can't destroy us all, the Threxian minister whispered hoarsely. Hale stopped pacing, turning toward him with a gaze steady as gravity. We don't need to destroy you all. Just enough that the rest understand. Another tremor rattled the air. Beyond the station's walls, the first salvo thundered silently into the void. Human ships targeted alien fleets positioned nearby, vessels that had shadowed the talks as guardians. Precision strikes flared, engines gutted, command decks carved open, weapons silenced in surgical bursts. No messy bombardments, no collateral damage, just clean efficiency. The council chamber vibrated faintly with each strike. The delegates flinched as if each explosion echoed inside their own bones. Hale never looked away from them, his voice cutting through their panic. That sound? That's the lesson. You brought us here thinking peace meant submission. You thought patience meant weakness. You thought mercy meant fragility. His eyes hardened. You killed our women. And in doing so, you reminded us of what we are when cornered. A Calathi aide sobbed openly, her mandibles clattering in despair. The Seraphi delegate trembled, veins flickering like a dying star. Even the Threxian minister, who had spat fury hours before, sat hollow-eyed, his scales dulled as if the life had drained from them. Rivera closed her notebook with a snap. It's over. You'll sign whatever we put in front of you, and you'll tell your people it was mercy. Because if you don't, she tilted her head toward the hollow projection where another alien warship bloomed into fire. That'll be your whole sky. Hale let the silence hang, broken only by the distant hum of destruction. Then, at last, he spoke more softly, almost regretfully. We don't want endless war. God knows we've had enough of those. What we want is simple. Leave us alone. Don't touch our families. Don't spill our children's blood and expect us to swallow it. Do that, and you'll find us the best neighbors you ever had. His smile returned, not warm this time, but edged with finality. Cross us again, and you'll find there's nothing in this galaxy scarier than a human with nothing left to lose. The words sank like anchors. There was no bravado in them, no need for raised voices. It was the tone of a predator who had already bitten and would bite again. The chamber doors finally opened, not for escape, but to admit more Marines, their armor gleaming, rifles angled in precise readiness. They moved not as men under orders, but as inevitabilities, like the ticking of a clock. They positioned themselves behind the delegates, not touching them, not threatening, simply present, a reminder that the council's fate rested in steady hands. The seraphied delegate slumped back in his chair, luminous veins dimming in defeat. The Calathi chancellor lowered her gaze, mandibles folding inward in submission. One by one, the alien leaders understood the trap had sprung long before they had even stepped onto the station. Hale exhaled softly, as though the weight of inevitability had finally settled. He retrieved his empty coffee mug, rolling it gently in his hand. "We'll draft terms. You'll sign them, and history will say you chose peace. That's the story we'll let your people believe." He set the mug down again, leaving another faint ring on the table, a mark more permanent than the ink they would soon apply. Torres leaned back, his voice light, almost amused. "Funny how peace gets written. Not with ink, not even with blood, with fear. That's the language everyone understands." Rivera smirked faintly. "At least until someone forgets. Then we remind them." The hollow projection flickered as the human fleet ceased fire. The nearby alien vessels crippled, but not obliterated, drifting like carcasses, with faint lights still flickering. The message was clear. Humanity could have ended them entirely. Instead, it had chosen to stop. Mercy sharp as a knife. In the chamber, the delegates sat in shaken silence, the sound of their own breathing loud against the hush. For the first time in living memory, the council knew fear not as a tool they wielded, but as a chain wrapped around their throats. Hale stepped closer to the table, his hands resting lightly on its polished surface. His voice dropped into a quiet calm, each word deliberate, final. "Remember this moment. Not the fleet, not the Marines, not even the strikes outside. Remember that we asked for peace first, and you mistook that for weakness. That mistake won't be repeated." No one answered. There was nothing left to say. The chandeliers flickered once, twice, before stabilizing, casting fractured light across the chamber. The human generals stood together, silent, steady, their very presence the final declaration. The war was over before it had begun, not because the council had been defeated in battle, but because it had seen, unveiled, the side of humanity that smiled with one hand and sharpened steel with the other. At last, Hale turned, leading his people from the chamber. The Marines followed, boots striking the marble in a steady rhythm that echoed like a funeral march. The alien delegates remained seated, some trembling, some staring blankly, none daring to move until the last human had left. Beyond the station walls, the human fleet tightened its formation, circling the station like guardians or executioners, depending on what came next. The stars beyond burned indifferent, cold witnesses to the reshaping of power. And as the chamber doors sealed shut behind them, Hale's last words lingered in the air, more haunting than the silence that followed. "You killed our women. Now you've seen the other side of humanity."